This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution, and I am here with our good friend Emma Garner, winemaker from 30 Bench Winery up on Beamsville Bench in Niagara. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Jamie. Looking forward to tasting some wines.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've done this. I mean,
It's been
we
way
have to
too
do it
long.
virtually, but normally I'm staggering around your winery doing this. So it's
I know exactly. I
yeah.
miss it.
So this is this is your 2017 Wild Cask Small Lot Riesling that we have here. And I
Yes.
tasted a Riesling the other day. I'd been doing a lot of reading on Riesling, and I was so excited to have a glass of Riesling. And I opened up this bottle of Riesling. I'm not going to tell you which one it was, but it was bloody awful. and today, in opening this bottle and having a taste of it, it's exactly what I was looking for the other day. So this is absolutely
Perfect. Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
yeah.
This interview might go
Oh
sideways in a
no.
hurry. Good news.
It's really quite special, and it's honestly, this is exactly the aromatic profile and the palette that I was looking for the other day. Absolutely
Awesome.
perfect. So tell us a little
Excellent.
bit about this particular vintage and the vinification. Well, I guess the grapes as well, but also
Sure.
the
Yeah.
special method of vinification you have here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, as you know, Riesling's a pretty big deal for us at 30 Bench. We're fortunate enough to have some of the oldest vines in the area. And it's something that I love to work on every year. And 2017 it was an interesting year. Like I suppose they all are. It was a bit cooler, so we were off to a bit of a later start, but the fall was spectacular. It
Mhm.
was warm and it was dry, and we got those later ripening effects that tend to work really well with Rieslings. So for us, it was a picture perfect year. And the wild cask is a bit of a different beast. So as you know, we have our small lot portfolio, which consists of, typically speaking, actually every year now we have committed to making 4 small lots. So we
Mhm.
have our wood post, triangle, and steel post,
Yep.
and the wine that you're tasting today is the wild cask as well. Back in 17 we were sort of horse trading between the 3 different ones, and we would choose the 3 best wines that we made for the season. And in 2017 we actually didn't make a wood post Riesling. So what we did was we took some grapes from wood post and we used that in the glass that you're tasting today. So um, the vinification is a little bit different. So this was a bit more winemaking intervention as opposed to our other small lot wines. And what I mean by that is, instead of just fermenting it all in stainless steel under a very cool temperature, and a regimented yeast program, what we've done is we take about 1,000 liters of juice from the press tray and we put it in large puncheons, so neutral oak, and we allow it to ferment wild. So we'll just fill it right to the very top. We wait to see, we put some cheesecloth over the bung, and then we wait to see till it starts puking out little foam.
Yep.
We get excited because it's starting to do its thing, and we just let it go until we taste it every other day just to see if it's on track. And then it's a bit more challenging to stop once we get to that sweet spot of sugar and acid
Yep.
balance, which is extremely important, as you know, and as you probably didn't experience the other day.
Yeah.
But in the barrel, unfortunately, we were unable to cool it as appropriately or as accurately, as quickly as we want to in the stainless steel tanks. So to offset that, we actually have a control tank, if you will, and we ferment it in the same style as we would our other small lot
Yes. Yeah.
wines. Okay, so that's why it's still got that underlying 30 bench esque personality, but it's got a little bit more of a breadth of palate, I would say.
Yep.
So the oak does offer a little bit more broadness on the palate. Still, that quintessential acidity pierces right through that and maintains its lightness on its feet. But it does have higher residual sugar, and it tends to every year. So it's something, again, just stylistically trying to differentiate a little bit between the small lots. So it usually, depending on the year, is around that 23 to 26 grams residual sugar.
And 10.8% alcohol on this vintage.
You got it. Yes. Yeah. So we brought them in. The grapes were lower bricks. Again, we're not really shooting for high bricks when it comes to Riesling. I'm more concerned with acid and making sure that there's enough of it there to help carry the weight of the wine. But moving forward, what our plan is for the small lot program is to create a wine from triangle, steel, wood, and as you may or may not remember, the Muckle Vineyard
Yeah.
is it was planted in 2014, and that is where the wild cask Riesling will be made from moving forward.
So after these years experimenting with this technique, are you comfortable? Do you feel comfortable now with the fauna that is inherent to your winery and the grapes, I guess?
Yes, yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it's obviously every year is going to give you a little bit of a different
Yeah.
profile, but there's still that underlying consistency that I like to see in the small lot Rieslings. So again, when we go back and have a virtual or a vertical tasting over the years, like the first year we made this was in 2013, and it was a one-off, and we told them, well, this we're never doing this again. We didn't do it in 14, and then it just came back because it was so well received, and it worked out really, really well for us as well. And again, as you say, that comfort level of knowing what the wine is going to be like. Again, you never fully know, but having a better sense for where it's going to go. It's yeah, it's a real fun wine to play with, and
I've,
the blending of it's really quite fun as well because that percentage is a little
oh, of
different
course,
each
yeah.
time.
Well, I've never
Mhm.
been much of a gambling man, and the whole idea of wild ferments, I think if it were my project, would drive me out of my mind. I'd either be too worried that I couldn't stop that ferment on time to hit that sweet spot you were talking of, or I would get a stuck ferment and then be all right. But you've never had any stuck
So
ferment
yeah,
problem, or
touch wood, no. We often have the opposite issue
oh,
of just not being able to stop it, and it keeps going. So it's one of those things that are sort of built into our tasting and just the envisioning. Okay, you know what? We really want to stop it a little bit drier. So let's try to stop it now, knowing that it will most likely, because you've got 500 liters and it's a fair amount of
yeah,
volume
yeah.
with a good head of steam behind it, might go a little bit farther than what you're aiming for. And we do have 2 puncheons as well, so we've got a little bit of play when it comes to the oak portion of this wine.
Have you experimented with those large oak fermenters that are temperature controlled from within?
I haven't. I would like to. My one concern with those, just at the beginning of our fermentation or the beginning of their life, I should say, as you can imagine, the impact of oak is quite great.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, I don't want that to come across in this wine. Like, you can feel that there's a little bit of wood tannin on the palate.
Yeah.
It helps frame the wine in, and I would love to get to the point if I could get my hands on a used one, I would certainly go for that. And then again, just as you say, you've got the flexibility of being able to dial in the temperature a little bit more as well. That's all kind of the fun of the wild ferment, though, and the
Yes.
wild
Yeah, yeah,
cask
yeah.
as well. Like, it's just sort of at the mercy of what you get.
I was just writing a piece for Psalm 360 about the phenomenon of TPN, the petrol, gasoline, kerosene character that
Hmm.
one finds on some Riesling. And my kind of my conclusion at the end of that was that TPN management may become the new black because of global warming and the like. So
Hmm.
you'd be looking at places like the Clare Valley, which would have huge amounts of TPN in their in their those wines. But even cooler regions such as Germany are now seeing an increase in TPN
Hmm.
formation within the wines. Is that something that you have had concerns with at all in Niagara?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know looking back over the years, like say in our hotter vintages, 2010, 2012, our leaf removal approach was
Mhm.
more aggressive than I feel it should have been. You know, if you could do it again, I'm sure everyone would change things of how they approached it. But as you know, in Ontario, there's that balance between airflow in the canopy and
Yeah.
managing disease, but also having sun exposure as well. So it's one of those, how much do we take off? But we've certainly mitigated or reduced the amount of leaves that we've removed every year now. And if we find ourselves in the position in later in the season and it's still really quite cool, we'd go back through and then remove more leaves because then obviously more sun can get in to help ripen the grapes, or drop crop even just we haven't found ourselves in that position, but if we ever were in that dire of a position in 2019, it was a very cool year, as you probably remember. um, we could go and we've got some other levers to pull, but it's something that we're certainly conscious of.
It was my understanding that the thing that forms the precursors to the TPN formation can be managed depending upon when you do that leaf plucking. There are periods throughout the grapes cycle that are more impactful upon the formation of those TPN precursors than others. And I think it was just after veraison was the time that would lead to the most severe formation of TPN. But again, I'm no grape grower.
Fair enough. It's interesting because we found as well the removal of leaves too harshly too early on in the season can be really detrimental as well. It's almost as though it's like our skin. Once you start to expose it to the sun again, the grapes are very sensitive.
Right.
So if you do expose them earlier on, it almost builds up a tolerance. And whether, again, the science behind it, I'm not 100% on, but I just know anecdotally what I've noticed and what I've seen is it almost strengthens the skin so they're less susceptible to sunburn. But what we have moved towards doing, there's a gentleman named Cobus Hunter who came to visit us in, what year was that, 2011? No, actually, sorry, it was 2013. And his approach to leaf removal, he's from South Africa, was not just in the fruit zone, and it was a smattering throughout the entire canopy. So actually, more or less exactly what my hand just did on the vines there. So to go through the entire panel as opposed to just in the fruit zone. So you're mitigating that sunburn, you're mitigating those compounds for TPN being developed, but also just still getting the airflow that you need.
Yes, yeah. Well, I have to say this is another marvelous example of Riesling equilibrium we have here with the 2017. That has made my week after a very challenging week.
Awesome. Happy to hear it.
Evening. Fantastic.
Good.
Emma, thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution today. We will catch you for another tasting extremely soon.
Awesome. We'll talk again. Take care.